discussion that you're now referencing where you asked Paul about how she's feeling that day, when did that happen?
At some point when we're in jail.
Okay. This is while you're in jail you had this discussion with Paul?
Yes.
The statement that you kind of leisurely got ready to go, you see that on line 25 on page 13?
Yes.
Did you have a desire or an intention to be late for your plane that evening?
I've only missed one flight in my whole life.
Okay. And this is a business trip, right?
Yes.
It's important for you to be there in Chicago, isn't it?
And I was there in Chicago.
Okay. And it's important for you to be there. You knew that on the 12th, right?
Yes, and I was there in Chicago.
Okay. And I take it that you have a practice of making sure that you get ready with enough time to make it to the airport to assure yourself that you'll be able to get on the plane and get to Chicago for your business appointment.
Well, it's debatable. My limo drivers would say no, and I will point out to them that I've only missed one flight in my whole life.
Your limo drivers would say no?
Well, they always wish I'd be ready when they get there, and I never am.
Okay. That's because you have a practice of running late?
I don't consider it late. As I said, I only missed one flight my whole life, and that's because a guy took the Midtown Tunnel instead of the 59th Street Bridge, which I told him to do.
Mm-hmm. So, for example, on the evening of June 12th, you didn't consider yourself running late?
I consider it just the way I always am. I really thought I'd had plenty of time to get to the airport, which I did, and I would have had more time if I wouldn't have taken the time that I took with Cato.
Well, would you ever use that term to characterize your status in talking to a limousine driver as of June 12th, that you were running late? Would that be a term you would use to describe what your time situation was?
Yeah, but every time a limo driver comes to my house, it's the same act. It's the same thing. You're late, you're running late, and I'm hustling. But I always know in my head that I got plenty of time, and I travel more than just everybody in this room combined, and I've only missed one flight my whole life, but it's the same. I had less time earlier that week trying to catch a plane to go to Washington. And the limo driver said, "You running late?" And I said, "Yeah, I know I'm running late." But in my mind, well, on that trip, I thought I was running late. But once again, I had plenty of time when I got to the airport, and I made my flight. It's a habit of mine to get ready, put everything basically where I want it to be, and at the last minute, it's sort of a whirlwind, and it is consistent with what I do all the time.
So even though you may tell a limousine driver you're running late, in your mind, you're really not running late. You're running on time.
That's right. I didn't believe that I would miss the flight.
So if you told Allen Park on June 12th that you were running late, in your mind, you may have believed that you were actually running on time.
Not necessarily on time. I just knew I wouldn't miss my flight. I knew I had time to make the flight. I wasn't concerned, really, that concerned about missing the flight, and so no, I didn't think I would miss the flight.
Other than the Cato discussions that you had that evening where he was talking to you about the noises, was there anything else that impeded or made it difficult for you to get ready on time?
I have a habit, and I don't know why, but I have a habit that once the limo get there, that sometimes my golf clubs were packed this time. Normally they're not. The limo driver sometimes has to do that. And historically, I'm always looking for my cell phone. That's just, don't ask me why. It's just a situation that normally Michelle will go out to the car and get it if she's there, or the limo driver would go look somewhere for it if he's there. It's just, it's just the way I am.
That wasn't a problem on the 12th, though, was it?
Yes, it was.
Sorry,
That wasn't a problem on the 12th with respect to your cell phone because you had it. Right?
No, when I came down, I didn't have it. I walked back in the house and got it off a counter, and I didn't have the rest of the stuff to go with it, which I consider, it's like a football helmet. If you don't have your helmet, you don't have your uniform, even though you might have on all the other stuff. You're still not properly dressed. I needed the rest of my stuff, so I didn't have it all together, no.
When you went upstairs at 10:20,
10:15, 10:20.
10:15, 10:20,
Yeah.
and then looked at the clock at about 10:35, 10:40.
Yes.
Between that time frame, you were just sitting on the bed doing nothing, right?
Yeah, I was kind of spacing. I had a book in my lap and my TV was on, so I was just sort of spacing.
But I mean, if you wanted to, you could have gotten up and jumped in the shower at any time in that time frame. There was nothing that would have prevented you from doing that, right?
Nothing.
And you didn't get a phone call or get interrupted during that time frame, right?
No, I was actually waiting, which is my custom, for the phone call to initiate me doing those things. That's the way I normally work it.
And the phone call that you're talking about is the phone call from the limousine driver?
Yes.
And so your practice is that you'll sit and wait until you get that phone call?
Yeah, normally I'm doing something else. I may be eating, I may be, if it's daytime, I may be out back, I may be doing just about anything. But normally I got things laid out, and I use that as my, okay, it puts me in high gear.
Okay. And you travel extensively, more so than anyone else in this room, just as you indicated, right?
That's correct.
And this is a practice that you routinely follow as a triggering event to you getting ready?
At home, yes. Not so much on the road.
Well, let's just talk about at home, because that's what we were concerned about.
Yes.
And that is that when you get a phone call from the limousine driver, that will trigger taking a shower or finishing your packing or dressing or anything that you have to do to get ready. Is that true?
Normally, yes. I mean, there are times a limo driver's late and Michelle or somebody is saying, you better get going.
Okay. And did you know what time your plane took off?
Roughly, I think I had just looked at it. So when I was on the bed, I know that was one of the things I looked at my travel folder. Yes.
That'd be kind of important for you to know in order to know whether you're running late or not, right? What time your plane was going to leave.
Yeah, I had a rough idea. It was, I believe, 11:45.
Okay. And in your mind, based upon your experience traveling, you knew roughly how long it would take you to get from the airport to the, strike that. Based upon your experience traveling, you knew roughly how long it would take to get from your house to the airport, true?
Yes.
And I take it that estimate would be based upon normal traffic conditions for a Sunday evening?
No, I'd probably take as many red eyes as anybody. So yes, I'm pretty aware of how long it normally takes to get to the airport, yes.
Okay. And do you know what time Mr. Park was scheduled to be there that evening?
It's the habit of my limo. I don't know about Park, but it is, I have a rule that you guys, because there was a few times they were late, whatever time we call, they get there 15 minutes early, so that I don't have to worry if they're there or not. So it's, I think they had a 10:45 call that night, so they should have been there at 10:30.
And that is a directive that either you or someone on your behalf has given to the limousine service?
I believe so. Over the years, it just became a standard thing with me and my limo service.
Okay, so that your limousine service presumably knew that they were to be there 15 minutes before the scheduled time?
Well, that's normally the way it is. I'm just telling you what has been normal over the years with me.
Okay, well, let's talk
I mean, there are
about...
times they've been late, but that's normally the way it is.
Well, that's what we're talking about, what normally, the normal way it is.
Yes.
And the normal way it is based upon your experience with this limousine service, true?
Yes.
And that experience is based upon your request to have them there 15 minutes early. Is that
Well,
correct?
I'm comfortable with that, yes. I don't recall actually saying it to them, but I know we've had some problems in the past when they were running late.
Okay.
And it's their practice to be there 15 minutes early.
So they knew, presumably, if they were following your directive, that if they were to pick you up at 10:45, they were to be there by 10:30. Is that true?
I can't say it was my directive. It's just their habit to be there 15 minutes early.
Okay.
And that's the way it's always been,
And
basically.
when you say it was their habit to be there 15 minutes early, did that include actually acknowledging that they were there waiting for you?
Yes.
And that was the triggering event that you would generally rely upon to start getting ready and finalizing your packing and so forth before leaving to the airport?
The majority of the time. I mean, I had housekeepers sometimes that would push me, but, or my kids, come on, Daddy, get ready, as my daughter testified to, but basically that's it, yes.
So if we follow what the normal practice was, if we're to assume that the limousine was scheduled to be at your house at 10:45, they would arrive at 10:30, true?
That's correct.
They would buzz you then, true?
Ring me, yes.
Ring you, and that would trigger your getting ready, true?
Well, doing the last things that I needed to do, yes.
Okay. And on this particular occasion, the limousine was scheduled to be there at 10:45, is that correct?
Yes.
And based upon the normal custom and practice that you had experienced with your limousine service, you expected to hear a phone ring at about 10:30, is that true?
That's correct.
And at 10:30, you were sitting on your bed doing nothing, is that true?
That's correct.
And at 10,
Well, I may have been reading.
you weren't engaged in a discussion or conversation with anyone, right?
Correct.
You weren't on the phone to anyone.
Correct.
Okay. And had you received a phone call at 10:30, presumably that would have triggered your getting ready, right?
Yeah.
And at 10:35, you were still sitting on your bed, is that true?
10:35 or 10:40, I'm not sure because I'm just not totally sure. It was right at those times.
Anywhere between 10:35 and 10:40 in that time period, because you're not certain, you were still on your bed.
Yes.
and you hadn't, had you appreciated at any point the fact that the limousine driver was not running as they customarily ran 15 minutes early from their schedule?
Yeah, I got a little concerned that I might have to drive myself to the airport, or I may have checked and see if Cato was home and told him to do it.
Well, do you have a recollection now of checking with Cato to see if he was home?
No, I said if the limo hadn't come.
Mr. Simpson, do you have?
I can't have a recollection of something I just told you. If he hadn't have come, I was thinking at the time I would have driven myself, or I would have asked Cato to take me to the airport. And since he had come before I was ready to go, I didn't have to do those things.
Okay. So that we're clear, at some point, 10:35, 10:40, you began to be somewhat concerned about the fact that the limousine driver hadn't rang.
I don't know about concern. I looked and said, where's the limo driver? And then I just started doing the things that I had to do to get ready to go.
When you say you looked, did you look out your window to see if
No,
the limo
no,
driver was there?
I became
You gotta
aware.
wait, go Jay till he finishes.
Okay.
Okay, everybody is just gonna have to slow down. I cannot keep up with this testimony. I cannot keep a record. So you're just both gonna have to slow down for me here, okay?
Okay.
Go ahead.
I don't even know if there's a question pending, is there?
When you say you looked, that's the last thing that I got.
When
No,
you
it's a figure of speech again. When I said I looked at the clock. The limo driver, I noticed, hadn't rung me. So I didn't know if he was running late or not. I just knew that I had to start getting ready to go.
You never looked out your window or made any effort to look outside at the Ashford gate to see if the limousine was sitting there. Is that true?
No.
And so that at roughly between 10:35 and 10:40, I guess you decided that you were going to get up and get ready on your own without this triggering event occurring, right?
It was time to go. It was time for me to do the things I needed to do to be ready to go, yes.
Okay. And at any time before you got in the shower, do you recall making any effort to determine whether Mr. Kalin was still home in
No.
the event?
No, I mean,
You have to wait till he's finished.
oh, I'm sorry.
In the event that you needed him to take you to the airport?
No.
Did you make any effort to determine whether Arnell was home in the event she had to take you to the airport?
At that time, there was no need to, so the answer is no.
Did you make any telephone contacts with anyone as kind of a backup in the event that the limousine driver didn't show up and you needed a ride to the airport?
There was no need to, so I didn't, no.
And it was at this point that you got into the shower. You went to the bathroom and then got into the shower.
Yeah, I went to the toilet, and then I jumped in the shower.
Mr. Petrocelli asked you during the course of his examination whether you were asleep between, I believe, 10 o'clock and 10:45. And you indicated that you were not. Is that true?
Yeah, I was fighting sleep, and that was the biggest problem I was having, falling asleep. So I was sitting there trying not to nod off. That's why I was trying to read and keep myself active.
Okay, because you were going to take a red eye. I mean, you normally sleep on a red eye, right?
Yes.
In fact, it wouldn't make a lot of sense to take a nap or sleep before you got on a red eye, right? Keep you
At
awake.
that late time, no.
And you deny that you told Mr. Park that you overslept, right?
Correct.
And other than your lawyers, have you ever told anyone that at the time of these murders you overslept?
No.
If someone made a statement on your behalf that you were asleep at the time of these murders, would that be a false statement?
Don't answer that.
Why not?
Because if someone made a statement on his behalf, it's irrelevant. I mean, you know what the facts are, what his testimony is going to be, and he's not going to answer
Well, I
it.
want to know if somebody who was an agent of his made a statement that he was asleep at the time of these murders, the basis for that statement.
Well, you're not going to know, because he's not going to answer the question.
Did you ever, do you recall when Robert Shapiro first became your lawyer?
I believe sometime Tuesday. I don't know if we had really decided Tuesday. I know I, for the most part, spoke to him Tuesday and liked him. It may have been Wednesday.
Okay, Tuesday, Wednesday? Roughly.
Yes.
And Mr. Simpson, as you've already testified in this deposition, you were the only person that knows your whereabouts between 10 o'clock and 10:45. Is that true?
My whereabouts?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
When Mr. Shapiro took over your representation, do you recall him making a statement on national television that at the time of the murders you were asleep?
Don't
No.
answer that.
No?
Don't answer that, I said.
Why?
Because it doesn't make any difference what Mr. Shapiro said.
Well, if Mr. Shapiro's lawyer gets on national television and says that Mr. Simpson is asleep,
So what? You're not going to get it out of this witness. And if you get it, if you get a ruling out of a judge that it's relevant, good for you. It won't surprise me in this case, but it's...
your answer is no, though, that you never heard him make that statement.
Don't answer that question.
Moving, fast forwarding a bit to your trip to Chicago on the plane. You were in first class, is that correct?
Correct.
And I take it that other than takeoff and landing, the lights were off inside the plane during the trip.
I think the overhead lights were, yeah. The plane lights, you have the ones at your seat
Did you have that light on?
sometimes.
Is that because you were reading?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you remember what you were reading?
Rigole.
And other than reading Gold, did you do anything else in write or work or anything of that nature on the trip back to Chicago?
I probably did. I may have looked at what I was doing in Chicago. I may have thought about some of the things that I would say.
Did you have one particular stewardess that waited, not waited, but that's handled the people in first class?
You know, I know there's always a first-class stewardess.
Flight attendant.
There you go. There you
Flight
go.
attendant. I know there's always a first-class flight attendant. I know the girl from the back came up once, got me a glass of water, I believe. But I really wasn't paying attention to the stewardesses.
Okay. Flight attendants.
Flight attendants.
All right. During the trip to Chicago, can you estimate how long you were in the air for?
No.
Do you recall having used the restroom?
Yes.
Do you recall having used the restroom on approximately 15 occasions?
I don't.
15?
15.
I'd say that's incorrect.
10?
I'd say that's incorrect.
That is
I would say that would be incorrect.
5?
Possibly.
Okay. Between 5 and 10 or less than 5?
Maybe about 5.
About 5. Okay.
Yes.
And was there any particular reason other than just using it because you had to go to the bathroom, that you had to utilize the restroom in the trip back to Chicago?
Other than taking a leak, no.
So you believe there were 5 separate occasions, roughly, that you had to actually use the facilities in the air back to Chicago?
Correct.
And while you were in the restroom, when you activate the lock, the lights go on, don't they?
I guess so, yes.
Yeah, not the plane, the bathroom.
Yes,
The bathroom
I
on the
believe
aircraft, yeah, okay.
so. Yeah.
So, for example, it will say vacant, you'll go in, you'll shut the door, you'll push the lock, and the lights go on inside the restroom.
Yes.
And on these roughly 5 occasions, oh, by the way, do you have a practice of washing your hands after you go to the bathroom?
Sometimes.
Well, is it a practice of yours?
Sometimes.
Okay, and do you recall any specific occasions where you washed your hands en route back to Chicago?
Either way, no.
Do you recall on any of these 5 occasions looking down and seeing any wounds or cuts to your hands?
No, I never saw any wounds.
Just so I'm clear, you don't have a specific recollection of actually washing your hands headed back as you were going back to Chicago?
No.
You have a specific recollection of putting a Band-Aid on any cut on any of your fingers
No.
as you were headed back to Chicago?
It didn't happen, no.
You're certain of that?
Yes.
When you got back to Chicago and you got to the hotel room, you indicated that you kind of put your toiletries out, and then I think you went to sleep. Is that true?
Yes.
Approximately what time was it when you went to sleep?
I don't know.
Was it light or dark out?
think it was getting late. I'm not sure, though.
Did you close any curtains to make the room darker so you'd be able to sleep
They were closed.
already when you got in there?
Yes.
And
I believe they were. They may not have been, but I believe they were.
okay. Was it roughly 5 or 6 o'clock when you got back to the hotel?
I believe it was after, I'm guessing. I believe it was after 6.
That's your best estimate?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we just stop right here and we can change the tape?
This is the end of tape number 1 of volume 8. The time is approximately 2, and you're off the record.
Smoking.
We've journeyed back here, Mr. Simpson, to Chicago with you, and we're in your hotel room now. And sometime after 6, and you've arrived at the hotel, and I think you've put out the toiletries in your bathroom, true?
Yes.
And you
Well,
believe
he didn't say sometime after 6. I think he said he didn't know the time.
Well,
Yeah, it may have been after 6.
don't let
I'm
me
not
put
sure.
words in your
It may have been after, you know, I only think that because of what I hear now, but at the time I had no idea what time it is. I assumed it was about 6 o'clock.
okay. And you assume that because the sun was coming up as you were going from the airport to the hotel?
No, I assumed that for I knew the flight and the time it took to get the luggage and get to the hotel, that it would be getting close to 6.
And am I correct on the rest of it, that you put out the toiletries when you got in the room?
Yeah, yeah.
And then you went to bed to get some
Brushed my
sleep?
teeth and then went to bed, yeah.
When you got the phone call from Detective Phillips, or one of the detectives, you remember that?
Yes.
Did you turn on the light?
I don't know.
Do you recall whether your room was dark at that time?
No,
You don't recall one way or the other?
one way or the other.
And I take it that when you were told by one of the detectives that Nicole had been killed, that was, you were in shock.
I don't know what I was. It was, you know, it was a lot. It was, I don't know.
Well, you were awakened early in the morning and told by a detective that your wife had been killed,
My ex-wife had been murdered. Yeah.
and that was shocking information.
I don't know what it was. I just know it was like, I can't describe it. It's you can't describe it. I can't describe how I was. It was.
Did you start crying?
I don't think so.
Okay. Did you start screaming?
While I was on the phone with him, you know what? I don't know what I did. Basically, I know it was hard to believe, and I know I was saying something to him. And then I was at that point trying to hear what he was saying to me.
Well, you've already related. I don't want to go back over the discussion with the detective, and then you spoke with Arnell, right?
Yeah.
After you hung up with Arnell, was there a period of time where you were crying after learning of this shocking news?
While he's in Chicago.
Yeah, while you're in Chicago, and the time period that I'm focusing on right now, Mr. Simpson, is when you hung up with Arnell.
I don't.
At that point, did you cry or scream or yell or do anything in response to hearing it?
I know I was pissed, and I was like feeling. I don't know what I was feeling. It was just so hard to digest, and I may have cried. I don't know. I know I did on the plane a little bit because I was trying not for the people not to see. But I don't know. I may have.
Let's just talk about what you do remember doing. You don't remember one way or the other whether you cried. True?
True.
You don't remember whether one way or the other whether you screamed. True?
I'm not a. What do you mean scream? Was I loud? I probably was loud. I mean, I wasn't screaming like Fay Ray or nothing, but I was probably loud. I have a habit of being loud.
Talking to yourself?
Yeah, venting. I don't know if I'm talking to myself. Just I have a habit of thinking out loud.
Okay. And as you described it, venting?
Yeah.
Were you walking around the room as you were venting upon hearing that your wife had been killed, your ex-wife had been killed?
I was going back and forth to the telephone. Yes.
Going back and forth between the telephone and where?
The bathroom, the telephone, and the closet.
Okay. What I'm trying to focus on, Mr. Simpson, is after you were told that Nicole had been killed, was there a period of time Or you just had to go through some emotional response where you weren't making phone calls or using the restroom or brushing your teeth, where you were sitting on the bed or walking around trying to deal with this news emotionally?
The whole time I was, even when I was sitting and walking and even fell back on the bed a few times, I was doing the whole period of time I was trying to deal with it emotionally. You don't turn on your emotions and turn your emotions off. The entire time I was trying to deal with it emotionally, no matter what I was doing. I was trying to deal with it emotionally.
Was there a period of time where you were trying to deal with it emotionally before you affirmatively started getting ready to leave?
The whole time, from the time I heard it, I began to try to deal with it emotionally.
And then you've described a process where you were going back and forth between the restroom and the phone, making phone calls, trying to make travel arrangements. And it's at some point there that you broke the glass, right?
Yes.
And you indicated to Detective Van Anter and Lang that you broke the glass as you were going bonkers a little bit, right?
Yes.
And were you indicating to them that upon hearing the news you were angry, and as a result of that anger broke the glass?
I don't know what I was indicating to them. I just broke the glass while I was doing the things that I was doing, trying to get out of there and trying to get back home.
When you used the term bonkers, were you attempting to imply that you were out of control?
Yeah, I think I probably was a little bit, yes.
And is it your testimony, sir, that you were out of control at the time that you broke the glass in Chicago?
I may have been. I may not have happened while I was, I just know that I don't know what I was.
Well, let's not talk about possibilities. Let's talk about
Okay.
what you recall. Because you recall telling the detectives that you were bonkers when this glass broke, right?
Yes.
Do you have a specific recollection? And strike that. You've also indicated that by the term bonkers, you're referencing a state of mind where you're out of control, right?
Sort of. When I say out of control, I mean, I wasn't jumping out of any window or anything, but yes, I was charged.
Charged?
Yes.
And the reason why you were charged is you had just learned this awful news about Nicole.
That's correct.
And it was in that context that this glass was broken. Is that true?
Well, you told me not to say what I don't know for sure, so I can't answer that.
Okay. When you told the detectives that you broke the glass as you were going bonkers, was that inaccurate?
I need to read that because I don't think I said as I was going bonkers. I said I kind of went kind of bonkers for a little bit. And I don't know if I said as I was going bonkers, I broke the glass. I don't know if that was what I said. I just know during this period of time, I would reach a point where it was just like, just trying to digest it all was a little much.
Let's go to that then. Okay. Page 15, if you have the statement in front of you, Mr. Simpson. And we're going to start at line 12. And the question that you asked, and this is in reference to how you cut the finger, because how did you do it in Chicago? Suspect, I broke a glass. I just was, one of you guys had just called me, and I was in the bathroom, and I just kind of went bonkers a little bit.
Well, let's, so that we're clear, there's 3 stars that indicate something is undecipherable. At least that's my interpretation, and we certainly don't have the tape. But you read it accurately. I don't mean to imply you did not.
Okay.
Because as you'll see in the logo, 3 stars means unintelligible at the first page.
Okay. Other than that, I read it accurately, correct, Mr. Simpson? You following along?
No, I wasn't.
Well,
But you did.
Well,
You did.
you wanted to revisit that
Yes.
that statement, right?
Yes.
You see where it says or where I read, I kind of went bonkers a little bit?
Yes.
And you are relating that state of mind to the detectives in connection with describing at what point you broke the glass, true?
Yeah, I went bonkers for a little bit. I don't know if that's when I broke the glass. It could have been, but as you told me, I shouldn't comment if I don't know for sure, and I don't. I just know I went bonkers. A glass got broke. I was trying to get on the phone. I was trying to get a flight out, so I was going back and forth, and during the course of all of that, and I broke the glass.
Okay. Let's try to be real clear here then on a couple of things. When you say you went bonkers,
Yes.
and in the context of describing how the glass was broken, you're not certain today whether that was your state of mind when the glass broke or not. Is that
When it actually broke, I don't know what my state of mind. I was agitated from the time I heard the call to the time I left, and during the course of getting on and off the telephone, trying to get packed, the glass broke.
Okay. Would you say that when you first learned of Nicole's death from one of the detectives, that your emotional reaction kind of reached a crescendo and then diminished as time went on?
I don't know.
Did you tend to gain a little bit more wits about yourself as time went on after having the opportunity to digest this information a little bit?
From what
know.
point to what point?
Just while you're in the hotel room.
I don't know.
You had mentioned during Mr. Petricelli's examination that you didn't recall whether you slammed the glass down, right?
We can get that
yeah,
if you want.
Once you get it. I mean, I may have slammed it down. I may not have slammed it down.
Okay.
But
well,
it broke.
Let's go from that. Are you, as you see it here today, is it your testimony that you could have slammed it down as one possible explanation for the glass breaking?
Yes.
And when you're talking about you could have, do you have some memory or recollection that you slammed the glass down?
No.
Okay. What I'd like to do in the next 5 minutes before we break is I want to rule out things that are possible, because a number of things are possible, and try to focus on what you have some recollection of doing. Okay?
Okay.
You have no recollection one way or the other of affirmatively doing anything to break the glass. Is that true?
Yes.
You have no recollection one way or the other of slamming a glass down and breaking it. Is that true?
I may have.
Well, when you say you may have,
I may
you
have. Somewhere in my mind, that may have happened, because I was slamming everything around, so that could have happened, yes.
Okay, well, what else did you slam around that day?
Just everything that I was throwing around. I was rude on the telephone. I was throwing things together to pack to get out of there. Yes, that could have happened. That could have been it.
Did you break anything else in that hotel room?
Not that I know of.
Did you break anything on the airplane ride back?
Not that I know of.
Did you break anything in the automobile ride from your hotel back to the airport?
No.
Did you break anything while you're at the airport?
I don't believe so.
And were you slamming things around on all these occasions, or just while you're in the hotel room?
I think I was a little aggressive, yes.
Well, when you say aggressive, I'm talking about, you said that you were slamming things around. You used that term.
Yes.
And to me, that means that you were physically taking objects and slamming them down or
Yeah.
slamming around.
You know. To me, that's slamming things around. I was doing that all day, yes.
Okay. So when you're talking about slamming things around, you've just demonstrated physically taking cups, pins, slamming them down on the table. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. Other than the glass that you broke in Chicago, did you break anything else that day while you were slamming things around?
I don't recall.
Okay, and so the basis for the statement that you've made, that is a possible explanation, is the recollection that you have of slamming things down all day, right?
No, the basis is that the glass broke. So that's the basis.
Okay, but you don't have a specific recollection of slamming the glass down and having it break while you're doing it, right?
As I said, it may have. I just know that it broke when I was moving things around in the bathroom, and it broke.
Well, wait a second. Now, you're saying that it broke when you were moving things around the bathroom?
Yes. I was trying to get my stuff out of the bathroom. I either slammed the glass down or knocked it over. I don't know exactly what it was, but I know that was my state of mind at the time, that I was like I was like a little bonkers.
Okay.
And the glass broke during the course of that. Hey, that's the best I can answer, no matter how many different ways you talk about this.
Okay, and I don't want to go over it, Mr. Simpson. You've discussed it, but what I want to do is focus on what's possible versus what you have a recollection of
Okay.
doing. Okay.
Okay.
And to see if we can flush this out a bit.
Okay.
Because you've talked about slamming things down throughout the day because of your state of mind. True? You did that.
Yes, I mean, I was aggressive throughout the day. I may have thrown my suitcase. I was pretty aggressive throughout the day.
Okay. Now.
Yeah, at least until I got back to L.A.
Okay. Now, do you have a specific recollection of slamming down a glass inside that bathroom?
I may have. As I said, I wasn't thinking about slamming at the time. It was my state of mind. So it's possible, as you say, what's possible and not possible. It's possible.
Well, it's possible I woke up in China this morning, but I know that I didn't. I'm just trying to find out what you recall, not what's possible. Do you have
said
some-
earlier possible, and I'm telling you, it's possible. That's how it happened. That's the only way I can answer the question.
Do you have any memory at all, as you sit here today, of taking that glass and slamming it down on the table?
It's possible that happened, yes.
It's possible you have a memory of it?
Yes.
Do you have a memory of it?
Possibly, yes. It seems like I was throwing everything around.
Well, either you have some recollection of it or you don't, Mr. Simpson. Do you?
It's possible that that's when it happened, yes.
Okay, and that's based upon some memory that you have.
It's possible that that's when the glass broke because I was being a little aggressive.
Okay, you don't want to
During
answer
the
my
time.
question?
Don't answer that
possible.
last question.
Well, it's possible that you have a memory of breaking a glass. Is that the best you can do?
I broke a glass. I know that's a fact. It's possible how it happened is when I was slamming things around or trying to pack things. I was a little aggressive.
Okay.
Evidently, the glass broke, so it's possible that that's when it broke.
Okay, so what we've established that you broke a glass and that it's possible that it happened when you were slamming it around so far, right?
That's correct.
As you sit here today, do you have some memory, some specific memory of breaking that glass by slamming it down while you're in Chicago?
It's possible.
Let's just take a break and
Okay.
take lunch.
We are going off the record now, and the time is approximately 12:40. We are back on the record now, and the time is approximately 1:38.
Okay. Mr. Simpson, we're back from our lunch break, and let's pick up where we left off. We were trying to narrow down some of these issues in Chicago, and we were talking about whether or not you recall slamming down a glass and breaking it in Chicago. You recall that discussion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You indicated in connection with some of my questions that it's possible that you don't recall. You recall that?
Well, I'm saying it's possible it could have happened at times that you indicated. I just knew it happened during that period of time. I just can't tell you specifically at what instance it happened. It just happened during a time when there was a lot of, I can't call it confusion, but where I was being somewhat emotional and I was trying to get out of Chicago.
Okay. I want to go through a number of questions, and what I'd like to try to focus on is what you recall today or don't recall today versus
Okay.
what may or may not be possible. Are we clear with one another?
Yes.
Okay. As you sit here today, do you recall whether or not you slammed a glass down, causing it to break?
No.
Do you recall whether you knocked over a glass with your hand accidentally causing it to break?
No.
Do you recall whether you broke the glass intentionally?
I don't believe I did, no.
Okay, so you have some recollection that however the glass broke, it was not done by you intentionally. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And is it fair to also assume that by your answer that you broke the glass accidentally?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall the breaking of the glass included some involvement of your hand?
Not really.
Okay. Is it possible that you kicked it over?
I
Your
doubt
foot?
that. I doubt that.
Do you have any recollection of hitting it with any part of your body other than your hand?
Not really, no.
Do you recall whether you hit it with any luggage?
It could have been.
Okay, when you say it could have been, do you now have a recollection as you sit here today of some luggage being involved in connection with the glass breaking?
Well, yeah, in my bathroom I had my overnight toiletry kit, and I believe I bought my big bag in there at one point too.
Okay. And do you remember the purpose of bringing your big bag into the bathroom?
I think I was just packing. I just think it was just a part of packing and whatever I was trying to do at the time.
When you say your big bag, you're talking about your grip?
Yes.
Did you bring your grip into the restroom or the bathroom before or after the glass broke?
I don't recall.
Do you remember some involvement in your grip in causing the glass to break?
No, I don't recall.
So as you sit here today, you have no recollection at all that your grip was involved in any way with breaking this glass. Is that true?
One way or the other, no.
Is that true, what I just said?
Yeah, either way, I don't have any recollection of was it before or was it after.
Well, that's
What
not
was
my...
it doing?
I'm sorry, that's not my question. My question is, do you recall as you sit here today, right now, any involvement whatsoever in your grip in causing this glass to break?
I don't recall.
Do you have a recollection of the glass that broke being on the counter sink? I'm sorry, on the sink counter at the time that it broke?
I just recall pushing the glass off the counter.
Okay, so at the time that the glass broke, is it fair to say that as you sit here today, you have no recollection with respect to where it was located?
I'm sure it was on the counter, but other than that, it's just not something that's been in my mind, no.
Okay.
You're right, I have no recollection.
Do you have a specific recollection of it being on the counter, or are you assuming it was because that's where the broken glass was located?
Yes, at this point, it's an assumption I'm making.
Okay, so you have no specific recollection as you sit here today whether it was actually on the counter at the time that it was broken. Is that true?
I'm sure it was.
But he's asking if you have a specific recollection.
Specific recollection? No, I don't.
Okay. Do you have a specific recollection of whether or not you threw the glass at something to break it?
No.
Okay, is that something that's possible, or are you able to rule that out as a potential explanation for how the glass broke?
Well, I didn't take it and throw a glass. I do know I didn't do that.
Okay, so that's something we're definitively able to rule out as you sit here today.
I believe so, yeah. I don't recall throwing a glass, no.
Okay, and that would also be true throwing it either at a wall or throwing it on the floor or throwing it on the counter. Are we able to rule all of those scenarios out as you sit here today?
Except the counter, if I kind of knocked it over or put it down hard, except for the counter, I can rule out that I didn't throw it at the wall or the floor.
Okay.
Or
Well,
anything like that.
what I'm talking about is not putting it down hard, but actually throwing it like a baseball at the counter. Are we able
No,
to
I don't
rule that
recall
out?
doing that. I'm sorry. I don't recall doing that.
Okay, when you say you don't recall, is that one of the possible explanations in your view? Can we definitively rule out the fact that you may have thrown the glass at the countertop causing it to break?
I'm pretty sure I didn't do that. But
Okay.
the glass is not something I don't.
Okay, let me just make sure I'm clear. Are you saying you're able to rule that out definitively?
I'm saying I don't recall that.
I don't recall that, meaning that's a possible explanation.
It's possible, I guess.
That you may actually have thrown the glass down on the countertop.
I doubt it, but it's possible.
Okay. Are you saying that anything that you don't remember is possible?
I think you said that earlier.
Was that in your state of mind, that anything that you don't remember is possible?
In that bathroom at that time, I can't say anything. If you were specific, I can answer this as best I can specific questions.